Our next big story tonight takes us to India, where OpenAI's GPT-5 launch may quietly be shaking the foundation of the $283 billion IT services sector. Analysts warn that this could trigger a wave of disruption for an industry already facing margin pressure. Kotak Institutional Equities estimates a 2 to 3% hit to IT revenue growth over the next 2 to 3 years, driven by productivity gains of 20 to 40% that reduce dependence on armies of coders and push client contracts away from traditional headcount-based pricing. Phil First of HFS Research doesn't mince his words, because this is what he has to say. If your business still depends on armies of coders grinding through routine builds, your margins are about to get hammered. But this isn't the only force at work. Ganesh Lakshmi Narayanan, the MD and GVP for ServiceNow India, points to another transformation in the making: AI-driven agentic systems. In a recent discussion with AIM, he said that intelligence agents could, and this is what he has to say, match skills in real time, recommend training, and push people into billable work faster, effectively addressing long-standing inefficiencies like idle bench time. The immediate picture is quite stark. Margin compression, job risks, and shrinking billing models are real. But the longer-term view is maybe, well, a little more nuanced. GPT-5's reduced hallucinations, improved reasoning, and enterprise-ready guardrails combined with AI agentic systems could actually accelerate IT modernization, enabling the sector to move into much higher value services that go beyond repetitive coding tasks. And to help us actually navigate these questions, we are going to be talking with Sandeep Sharma, who of course is a Senior Director, Research and Advisory at AIM Research, who actually leads strategy and insight on AI, IT services, and digital transformation. A little bit about Sandeep, because Sandeep brings nearly 15 years of experience in technology research, consulting, and market strategy, having advised Fortune 500 companies, IT service providers, and enterprises on AI adoption, outsourcing models, and disruptive technology trends. Well, the man has definitely been busy over the last 15 years, and it is our true honor to, well, bring him on front page tonight so that we can pick his very, very busy and brilliant brain about this particular discussion, which actually is making a lot of people sweat. Welcome to the show, Sandeep. How are you doing?
Okay.
Hi,
Thank you,
Sandeep.
Sudhi. Hi. Thank you, Sudhi. It's a pleasure to be on the show. Thank you so much for inviting me.
It's truly our pleasure to have you with us, Sandeep. And I'm sure you've probably heard about this headline, which is going around right now and is actually probably causing a little bit of concern to the IT sector services. So I would like to, of course, start the discussion with the first thought that comes to my mind, Sandeep, which is this: Kotak projects 2 to 3% IT revenue hit. How real is this number? And do you see the disruption being sharper or actually more gradual?
Very interesting question, Sudhi. In fact, this is a very hot topic right now. Let me actually give you a very balanced, nuanced view of what we are seeing in the market right now. So the IT industry in India has obviously witnessed some headwinds as far as the Q1 financial year 25-26 results.
Hmm. Hmm.
This backdrop, Sudhi, let's analyze the impact of GPT-5 AI or generative AI technology.
Sure. Sure.
Pressure on service providers definitely due to Gen AI projects. So the AI-driven productivity measure is absolutely real, especially in some areas. For example, ADM. ADM is application development and maintenance. It includes testing as well. Additionally, there are areas such as infrastructure management, BPO services. These are also under pressure due to AI or Gen AI-led productivity drives. Given the fact, Sudhi, that more than 50-60% of revenues of the Indian IT services providers still come from these FTE heavy ADM, BPO, and infra management services, and if you combine the fact that there is overall a slowdown in tech spend, the 2 to 3% revenue hit target that some analyst firms are giving for Indian IT services providers, it definitely seems to be the market signal at this point in time. However, if you look at this dip, this expected dip will be gradual, and this will not be immediate. This will be spread over a time horizon of 3 to 5 years. This will obviously depend on the nature of services contracts, which are generally 3 to 5 year services contracts. Hence, I don't see an immediate and sharp dip in the revenues of IT services providers. In fact, you should also look at some other nuances. For example, there will be shocks to companies which are actually over-indexed on some of these services that I mentioned. But they are clearly pivoting to providing services such as cloud, analytics, AI, and Gen AI. And over a period of time, the impact will be gradually offset by the demand of these service lines. So in short, the dip will not be as pronounced as what is being predicted by several analysts.
Fair, but still, Sandeep, the dip is there, which means 2 to 3% essentially translates to, well, a couple of unicorns probably getting evaporated, given the fact that we are talking about a $283 billion industry, and the fact that this disruption, as you well pointed out right now, that it's going to hit repetitive work first, and then probably gradually move on to the consultative services later. Which actually brings me to the next question, Sandeep, that the Indian IT has actually thrived on headcount-based billing, which is what you had just mentioned a little while back, with GPT-5 boosting productivity, which is 20 to 40%, the estimation. How disruptive will the transition to outcome-based pricing models will actually be?
Sure. In fact, Sudhi, I'll also provide another reality check here. So directionally, I agree with the overall prediction that outcome-based pricing is absolutely real. In fact, it is growing. But FTE-based pricing is not going anywhere for the foreseeable future. Outcome-based pricing will definitely be observed in deals in emerging technology areas such as AI, Gen AI, and GPT definitely is going to play a larger role in that because it boosts enterprise productivity, as you said, by 20 to 40%.
Sure.
And some of these productivity gains will definitely be passed on to customers during deal renewal discussions. However,
I just want to ask you, since you just mentioned, sorry Sandeep, but I just thought, I mean, this came to my mind. I just wanted to ask you, when you talked about this outcome-based thought pattern, do you believe, and would you maybe agree with me when I say this, that it's actually not a model, it's actually a mindset? So would you kind of maybe think that that also is a part of this entire conversation?
Definitely, Sudhi. It is definitely a mindset of organizations, but we should also not ignore the fact that outcome-based pricing is definitely dependent on a lot of factors. So whenever you'll have to share risk and rewards with your partner, with your vendor partners, you'll definitely have to look at a lot of parameters. For example, what are these outcomes that you're looking at? How are you looking at achieving these outcomes? What methodologies are involved? What teams are involved? How do you measure these outcomes? So basically, there are a lot of variables which are involved in this outcome-based pricing model. So in my experience so far, this outcome-based pricing model has been adopted in only, let's say, emerging technology areas such as AI, Gen AI, cloud, cybersecurity to some degree. But clearly, if you look at the overall application and IT infrastructure landscape of organizations, we are talking about larger enterprises here.
Yes.
So if you look at their landscape right now, 60 to 70% is still legacy, and it is still dependent on FTE-based management. So I don't think FTE-based pricing is going anywhere, at least for the foreseeable future. But outcome-based pricing will definitely be boosted because of GPT-5, and that too for very, very specific areas.
Fair enough. Which actually brings us to the next thought, which is that beyond actually the short-term margin squeeze, do you see GPT-5 actually opening up opportunities for higher value services, or will generally the risks outweigh opportunities for Indian IT firms?
Oh, absolutely. For the Indian IT services providers, I would say that the opportunity side is actually structurally very large, in fact, larger than the risk side. And I believe that GPT-5 or in general AI and generative AI is a catalyst for reinvention. It is not a long-term threat. In fact, it will squeeze margins in the near term, but definitely it is a catalyst for reinvention in the midterm to longer term.
Sure.
So what GPT-5 or generative AI will enable is that the bigger story for the IT services providers is the expansion into AI-led services, domain solutions, and consulting-led engagements. So basically, this pushes the IT services firms up the stack from low-end outsourcing. You remember the services that I was talking about, ADM,
Yes.
infrastructure management services, and BPO.
Yes, sure.
So the GPT-5 or generative AI technology, I think this will push the Indian IT services firm from low-end outsourcing services to consulting, solutions integration, basically higher up the value chain. Additionally, we should not also ignore the fact, Sudhi, that core modernization is a tremendous opportunity, and GPT-5 can actually unlock a lot of value in core modernization.
I was actually just going to come to that, Sandeep. I wanted you to probably, I wanted to pick your brain on that. That everyone, of course, is so fearful, and the fact that everyone is so petrified about AI going ahead and killing jobs. But actually, do you not believe? I mean, I believe you're touching upon that. That it actually frees humans to sell strategy, innovation, and advisory aspects, which actually is going to benefit in the long term. I mean, I just thought I should add that and ask you that.
Absolutely. Absolutely. In fact, if you look at the revenues of all the IT services providers with strong consulting capabilities, the consulting revenues have actually been boosted by the advent of AI, Gen AI, and now agentic AI services.
True. So essentially, I mean, moving on, Sandeep, that the reality is there. I mean, there is a boost in terms of the 20-40% that you talked about. We've touched upon the fact that it is a certain amount of a mindset and all of those factors. But moving on to the next question, which is actually something a lot of people are trying to understand, is this: that with the latest GPT-5, with reduced hallucinations, it improves reasoning and enhances coding. Can this actually accelerate legacy modernization for clients? And how well is the Indian firm positioned to capture that opportunity?
Wonderful, Sudhi. I think this is a very important question for the overall IT industry in India. Let me first of all point out to you that today, if you look at the overall application and infrastructure landscape in some of the largest enterprises globally, close to about 60 to 70% of workloads in just, let's say, one industry vertical, which is BFSI, it runs on legacy systems, monolithic systems, which are very risky and expensive to maintain. And you rightly pointed out that GPT-5 is a highly advanced model. It reduces hallucinations to a greater degree. It improves reasoning. It enhances coding. And all of this can actually lead to a lot of modernization drives in some of these larger enterprises. And it could do various activities, for example, automatically generate documentation, map dependencies between different systems, refactor a lot of COBOL-based systems into Java or C, so basically using modern programming languages. It can create automated test harnesses and so on and so forth, multiple activities. All of these activities can actually...
Wow.
across larger enterprises in BFSI, in retail, and so on and so forth. And coming to your question about how well positioned are Indian firms to capture this opportunity, I would say that Indian organizations, Indian IT services firms, should ideally have the first mover advantage in this particular position because traditionally they are the vendors of choice for ADM services, application development and maintenance services for a majority of the Fortune 500 clients. So
Sorry,
I would actually
just
put it this way.
one little tongue-in-cheek comment. Just do they have a choice?
I'm sorry?
I said, do they have a choice?
They don't have a choice, but let me put it this way, that This is such a sizable opportunity, and they are at the right place at the right time. And the opportunity is right now for the IT services providers to lose. So I think they should pivot very, very quickly. They should upskill, reskill their employee base with AI. And in my opinion, they are the best place to become modernization partners for choice.
Wonderful. Of course, wrapping up this session, Sandeep, is always forward-looking, future-looking. The question which I have for you, of course, needs to bring out your predictive aspects and talents. So the question is, 10 years from now, will GPT-5 be remembered as actually the revenue killer of Indian IT, or as the spark that's forced the industry to reinvent itself for the AI era? You can take your time. You can bring out the crystal ball. You can, whatever little tools you have.
So, the short answer to your question, definitely not the revenue killer for the IT services industry. In fact, we have heard this phrase being coined for a lot of other, technology trends, starting from cloud, AI, and so on and so forth. At the very best, it will be remembered as one of the key sparks that has led to the acceleration of the Indian IT industry towards high-value, platform-led, a hybrid pricing model. So the key word here is acceleration. So Indian IT companies definitely will have to move up the value chain of services. And my sense is that the shift is already visible. You'd already see a lot of Indian IT services companies already doing that. So directionally, the IT industry in India is on the right track, Sudhi.
So Pandit Sandeep says it's a good thing to do.
Yes, definitely.
And I'm hoping that Pandit Sandeep said that with a smile on his face. Thank you so much, Sandeep. As always, it's been a true pleasure. And of course, as we keep going along on Front Page, we are going to keep coming back to you for your very, very insightful inputs. Thank you so much once again.
Thank you, Sudhi, for the opportunity.
Thank you, Sandeep. Have a wonderful time.
You too.
So, well, basically, the question remains, this is my, of course, take from the conversation that we had with Sandeep. It is probably the inflection point, that point which has brought us to that aspect where companies need to actually survive, thrive, or simply get left behind. And finally, of course, we're going to be talking about the fact that GPT-5 is probably going to have a huge impact, as Sandeep had mentioned, that it will take a little bit of time, but I think we need to, of course, prep ourselves for what's coming.